Aubrey, I know that you have lived in a lot of other countries. Do you stay in touch with people who like still live abroad?
This is actually one of the tragedies of my life that I have not really stayed in touch.
It's
Part of it is
hard.
because social media didn't exist when I was
Yeah,
there. So we
totally.
didn't make that connection. And if I got a phone number or an email address, I've lost it in the years since. And it's really sad. I tried to look up a good friend from Belgium.
Yeah.
Can't find her. I don't know if maybe she married and has a different last name now. And I'm so sad that I can't find her. What about
I
you,
know
Jessica?
it's hard.
It is hard.
Um, yeah, basically just from Taiwan though, just because I was there for so long. And I still talk to a friend of mine who is a full-time IELTS examiner over in Taiwan. I still talk to him a few times a year, just to like catch up and see how he's doing.
Totally.
But also, I want that inside scoop on what's happening in IELTS because he's been a full-time examiner forever. He's like he's done IELTS examining longer than anyone I know. Like seriously, that's how long he's been an examiner. So we have a little news for you guys today. A couple changes, a couple ways IELTS has changed in the past year, and what that means for you on the speaking test.
Yeah, and it's straight from the mouth of an IELTS OG, guys.
IELTS
So,
OG. Let's explain that because students could use that slang on the test. When
yes.
do we say that?
Yeah, it actually stands for original gangster, but you're not literally talking about a gangster. This is an idiomatic expression we use to talk about anyone who's been involved in something the longest, has been around the longest. My neighbors, there's a few families and new families have moved in. So we have a
Yeah.
text thread of the OGs, meaning the neighbors who've been here the longest.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so
Funny.
great. Yeah, totally. I love this term. It's so fun. If someone's like, yeah, anytime you've been in a community for a long time, you're like, I'm an OG here. Another phrase we use related to that is to call somebody the granddaddy of something, right?
Yes,
If they like,
totally.
especially if they like started a movement, but also if they've just been doing it for the longest. So I could say my friend Mike, who does all of the gardening at James School, I could be like, he's like the granddaddy of the school gardens because like he started them himself like 10 years ago.
Yes, I love that. You guys are for sure going to hear people referred to as the granddaddy of rock and roll, or maybe
Yeah,
the granddaddy of acting, things like this. Someone
totally.
who's been doing it the longest. But I love that slang of using it to just talk about someone you know who's been gardening the longest, right? Oh, you're the granddaddy of gardening. That's
You're the
awesome.
OG gardener. Like they're interchangeable.
Totally.
Okay, such good stuff for speaking. But let's get into the examiner side of things. Now, examiners are checked every couple of years. They have to be like checked and reapproved, right? Recertified to continue examining. And it's getting tougher and tougher. And the examiners are checked just randomly. We never know when, but just randomly, our recordings of the speaking test will be sent to a granddaddy IELTS person and they'll like grade us. And you could be marked standard or non-standard. And if you have enough non-standards, you're not allowed to examine until you pass this standardization procedure.
I've sort of wondered as well. I know students will sometimes apply for a remark. We
Yeah.
often have students ask us, should I reply or apply for a remark? And I wonder if enough examiners, someone applies for a remark and it's granted, if that would flag that reexamination. Kind of makes sense that it would.
If yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many aspects to this and reasons why IELTS needs to make sure every examiner around the world is doing exactly the same thing.
Totally.
But it's kind of getting out of control, to be honest. And that's what we're talking about today, guys. The expectations for examiners have changed, and it is so much stricter than it was before. So this affects you as a candidate because the examiner has to be much more strict with timing. And so now it's even less like a natural conversation. Like it's even more like a robotic test because the examiner is just so strict with the timing.
So I feel like I should just pepper you with some questions that maybe, will give us some information that you learned from this OG examiner. So give us some details there. What is more tight? What is stricter about that timing procedure now?
So the timing for part 1 and part 3, they're very, very strict on it now. Like part 1 has to be like exactly 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Like it's ridiculous. And so you're asked 3 groups of questions in part 1, right? So the first group is always like work, studies, hometown, right? It's one of those 3 topics. And then the next 2 groups could be about anything, like cooking, food, travel, best friends, colors. So here's the timing. The first group, that dependable one, work, hometown, studies, that one is 2 minutes. Okay. And then the next 2 have to be exactly 1.5 minutes each. And the examiner has to ask you all of the questions there in that very strict time frame. So what ends up happening to you guys, to the candidates, is that the examiners are interrupting you like all the time, which would kind of throw me off if I didn't know about it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen even more so than in the past, when it could be a few seconds under or over and didn't matter so much. The examiner is going to have to be more on the ball about interrupting you if you go even just a couple of seconds, if you potentially are going to go over, because they can't risk it, or they're going to get flagged non-standard.
Yeah. It would be stressful to be an examiner under these conditions, because it's hard enough trying to analyze the candidate's speech for these 4 different factors and 9 different score. You know what I mean? Like you're doing all this calculation the whole time, but now you're also counting seconds. Like that'd be so hard.
So much to pay attention to, scoring, looking for everything the student needs to do, and also watching the clock that closely is going to be stressful. Wow, tricky.
And it'd be awkward just to cut people off all the time like that. Oof.
Yes,
I would not want to do
happened
that.
enough before. Now it's going to happen even more. But again, you guys have heard this before on the podcast. Don't ever let that throw you off. If the examiner interrupts you, it's not affecting your score. Just means you clearly had lots more to say, but they need to move on to the next question. Don't let it make you nervous.
Yeah. So I would say, exactly like Aubrey said, don't let it throw you off. You are proving to be more fluent if you do get cut off, because it means you could keep talking. And I think the thing to practice now more than ever is to get to the point more quickly, like really answer that question right away and then give context, and then expand on it. So I think that slightly changes the way we're approaching part 1 answers now.
That's a good point, because you've got to answer the question. You got to get to it before they have to cut you off.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be worried when this happens, guys. So what I think is most sad about this is that this is in effect for part 3 as well, this really strict timing control. And I always liked the part 3 as an examiner, because it used to be like we were encouraged to develop a conversation. Like that was the point. It was supposed to be a developed conversation where I get to come up with my own questions based on the candidate's answers. And that's like fun, that's really fun. But I mean, not anymore, because the examiner has to ask every question in these 2 groups of questions in part 3. And again, like they all have to be done in a very strict amount of time. And so again, you're just going to be cut off a lot.
Oh, it's really unfortunate, because I think that was actually a really cool thing that the IELTS tested, was the ability in part 3 to be able to sort of react to questions the examiner might ask, follow up on an interesting topic, and dive a little bit deeper. And that's going to have to be done away with a little bit in order to meet those timing guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. It's too bad. So I always like the challenge of coming up with different questions, like made it more fun. The longer you examine, it gets boring, right? So that little freedom, unfortunately, has mostly gone away. So the last thing that you guys should know about is more and more test centers from around the world. I talked to somebody in Australia about IELTS. I talked to somebody that works for the British Council who's in Portugal and has to do with IELTS. I've talked to so many people over the past couple of weeks, because we really want to tell you guys the future of IELTS, how it's changing, what to expect. And so here's kind of the last thing to let you guys know about. more and more centers around the world are really doing away with those paper exams and instituting a lot more computer delivered IELTS exams. So we have done shows before about the advantages of doing computer IELTS. And remember, Three Keys IELTS, our online course, it does have a computer version. And you still can't get a lot of computer delivered IELTS prep courses. So check out Three Keys IELTS, guys. We were the first to have a computer delivered IELTS course. Go to allearsenglish.com/KEYS. And if you have any questions about IELTS, send us an email, support@allearsenglish.com. And don't forget, until next Tuesday, we have a very special offer on a grammar and speaking skills course. Aubrey, can you remind us about that?
Yes, go check it out, guys, at allearsenglish.com/grammar. We have this amazing course. You also get 4 live group classes with us, which are the most fun. I look forward to them all week. And It's really great grammar for IELTS because it's simple. You're learning exactly what you need to do in order to improve that grammar course, your grammar score, in a really fun way. And right now you can save money. And we have this fun competition where the first 10 students get special perks. So you guys want to get in there as soon as possible.
So go to allearsenglish.com/grammar, coupon code grammar for 10% off everything that Aubrey just said. All right, Aubrey, have a great rest of your week.
Yes, you too, Jessica. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.